It is exactly 2 in the morning. The only sound in this entire apartment is the hum of a rusty refrigerator in the corner. I never actually knew that silence could be this incredibly loud, or this suffocating. I am sitting on the bare floor of a living room that barely has enough space for a decent sofa. Over in the corner, my daughter is fast asleep on a thin mattress we dragged in just a few hours ago. She is curled up tight, wrapped in her favorite faded yellow blanket. Listening to her soft breathing is honestly the only thing keeping my mind from completely spinning out of control right now. Today was our very first day in this new place, our first day officially away from the house that used to be our home. I remember the moment I closed the front door of our old house. For the very last time this afternoon, I did not look back. I could not afford to look back, because if I did, the sheer terror of the unknown might have paralyzed me completely. I had to pack a massive chunk of my life, and my daughter's entire childhood, into the back of a small rented truck. We drove away in total silence. She was holding her stuffed bear, peering out the window at the passing streetlights. She did not cry. She did not ask where we were going, or when we were coming back. It was as if she already knew that the environment we were leaving was slowly crushing our spirits. Kids are incredibly intuitive. They feel the emotional temperature of a home, long before adults can find the logical words to describe it. When you walk away from a marriage, people always assume there was some massive explosion. They look for the shattered plates, the screaming matches, the physical scars. But that was never our reality. Our reality was something far more insidious. It was the cold violence. It was the kind of freezing indifference that slowly hollows out your chest. Day after day, it was sitting at the same dinner table and feeling like you are 1,000 miles away from the person sitting right across from you. It was the heavy sighs. Whenever I walked into the room, the subtle eye rolls. When I tried to share something positive about my day, the constant, unspoken judgment that I was somehow failing at being the man she expected. You can only take that kind of invisible beating for so long before you start to believe you really are worthless. But the breaking point was never about me. It was watching my little girl start to normalize that freezing temperature in our house. It was seeing her learn to tiptoe around the tension, absorbing that toxic quiet like a sponge. I realized I could not let her grow up thinking that is what love is supposed to look like. So I packed our bags. I chose this tiny, cramped apartment over a beautiful house filled with absolute emotional starvation. If you have ever found yourself staring at 4 walls in the middle of the night, wondering if you made the right choice, leave the word peace in the comments down below. Just share it honestly. You do not need to write a long essay. And please do not spam. I just want to know that I am not sitting in the dark alone on this journey. Right now, there are cardboard boxes scattered all around me. My hands are still covered in dust from moving heavy furniture up 3 flights of stairs. I reached into one of the smaller boxes just to pull out her toys. I wanted her to wake up tomorrow morning and see her favorite things waiting for her. I pulled out a small wooden music box. It is a cheap little thing I bought at a flea market a couple of years ago. She used to wind it up every single night before bed, but as I turned the small metal key just now, absolutely nothing happened. The gears inside just grinded together, causing a harsh, broken, scraping noise. It is completely jammed. Under normal circumstances, I would probably just throw it away and promise to buy her a new one tomorrow. But tonight, for some reason, the thought of throwing it out feels like a massive defeat. It feels like admitting that everything is broken and cannot be fixed. So I grabbed a tiny screwdriver from my pocket. I am sitting here under this single, dim yellow light bulb, trying to pry the wooden base apart. My hands are thick and clumsy. I am not a watchmaker. I am just a tired dad, trying to figure out how a tiny spring connects to a brass wheel. My fingers keep slipping. I keep scratching the wood. The frustration is starting to build up hot in the back of my throat. I am staring at these tiny brass teeth, trying to force them into place. My vision is getting blurry from staring at such small pieces in the dark. The silence in this room is suddenly giving my mind far too much space to wander. It is giving space to the terrible doubts. What if I cannot provide for her? What if I lose my job And we cannot afford rent. What if this tiny apartment is freezing cold in the winter? What if she eventually resents me for taking her away from a comfortable, financially stable life? These questions are like a physical weight pressing down hard on my chest. It is the terrifying reality of single parenthood, hitting me all at once. It is not really about the music box anymore. It is about the overwhelming weight of realizing I am entirely on my own now. Every meal, every bill, every sick day, every scraped knee, it all falls squarely on my shoulders. There is no backup plan. There is no safety net. There is just me. A pile of unpaid invoices, and a broken toy in the middle of the night. I drop the screwdriver. It clatters against the hardwood floor, echoing loudly in the quiet room. I freeze immediately, looking over my shoulder to see if the noise woke her up. She just shifts slightly under the blanket, letting out a soft sigh, and stays peacefully asleep. Seeing her face, so completely trusting and calm, shifts something deep inside me. I made a promise to myself tonight. I declared to my own soul that storms will only force my roots to grow deeper into the ground. I am going to be the strongest, most unshakable fortress my little girl has ever known. If your heart is also looking for an anchor of strength right now, hit that subscribe button so we can keep each other standing tall every single day. I am going to pick up that screwdriver. I take a deep, shaky breath, the kind that fills your lungs all the way to the bottom, and I let it out very slowly. The sudden panic that was tightly gripping my throat just a minute ago begins to slowly recede. I look back down at this cheap little wooden music box, resting in my calloused hands. It is not just a broken toy anymore. It feels like a massive test. It feels like the universe is asking me exactly what kind of father I am going to be when the lights go out and the audience leaves. Am I the kind of man who just throws broken things away when they get slightly difficult? Or am I the kind of man who stays up all night, bleeding from the fingers, to put them back together? I wipe the cold sweat off my forehead with the back of my dusty sleeve. I pick up the tiny metal key and force myself to examine the gears again. This time, without the overwhelming panic clouding my vision, I can actually see what went wrong inside the mechanism. One tiny, almost invisible brass pin has slipped completely out of its designated groove. That is all it is, just one little piece falling out of alignment, causing the entire system to violently grind to a halt. It is honestly funny how much that broken mechanism resembles the marriage I just walked away from. For years, I kept trying to force the gears of that relationship to turn. I kept ignoring the terrible, destructive scraping noise in my soul, desperately hoping it would just magically fix itself. I thought if I just worked harder, smiled more, and complained less, the coldness would eventually warm up. But you cannot force a fundamentally broken mechanism to play a beautiful melody. You have to have the raw courage to take it completely apart, face the messy, ugly pieces, and decide if it is even worth rebuilding. That is exactly what this tiny, cramped apartment represents for us right now. It is our messy, uncomfortable, but entirely necessary rebuild from the ground up. I use the very tip of the screwdriver to gently nudge the little brass pin. It stubbornly resists at first. My hand is shaking slightly, just from the sheer physical and emotional exhaustion of the day. I actually have to brace my elbow against my knee to keep my wrist steady enough to work. In my mind, while I am focusing on this tiny gear, I keep flashing back to the last few months at the old house. I remember the exact way my daughter started playing quietly in the corner of her room, instead of running freely around the living room. I remember the way she would look back and forth between me and her mother, constantly trying to read the invisible danger signs in the air. Children should never have to act as emotional detectives in their own home. They should never have to carry the heavy, suffocating weight of an unhappy marriage on their tiny, fragile shoulders. In your opinion, what is the hardest invisible scar for a child to heal from after a divorce? Please share your civilized perspective in one short sentence down below. No weird spam links, so we can all learn how to better protect our children's souls. I press down on the stubborn brass pin, just a little bit harder. It is an incredibly delicate balance right now, because if I push too hard, I will snap the brittle metal, and the music box will be ruined forever. I hold my breath, I apply a steady, firm pressure, and then I feel a tiny, distinct click. It is the softest, most satisfying sound I have ever heard in my entire life. The little pin slips perfectly back into the groove where it belongs. I slowly turn the winding key, half expecting the gears to violently jam again, but they do not jam. The tension builds inside the spring, feeling smooth and steady against my fingers. I let go of the metal key. The little brass cylinder begins to rotate smoothly on its axis. A delicate, metallic lullaby instantly fills the quiet, empty room. It is a very simple tune, slightly out of tune and incredibly tinny, but right now, sitting in this bare room at 2:30 in the morning, it sounds like an absolute masterpiece. It sounds like a massive victory. I suddenly realize that I am smiling in the dark. My face actually aches a little bit, because I cannot remember the last time I smiled a real, genuine, unburdened smile. I actually did it. I fixed the broken thing. It is such a small, seemingly insignificant win in the grand scheme of life, but it feels like I just moved a massive mountain. If I can figure out this tiny, complicated mechanism in the dark, I can definitely figure out how to cook a decent, healthy meal for us tomorrow. I can figure out how to budget my tight paycheck, to cover the rent, the groceries, and the electricity bill. I have always been a remarkably fast learner in everything I do, whether it is figuring out how to grow a small, thriving vegetable garden on a cramped balcony, or setting up a lively fish tank to bring some joy into a room. I know how to adapt. I have this deep, burning passion for building things entirely from scratch. That is exactly why I am putting my absolute heart and soul into building an online business and growing this YouTube channel. I fiercely want to create a life where I am not chained to a corporate desk for 60 hours a week, while someone else raises my beautiful child. I want true, lasting financial freedom for our family. I want to be the father who proudly drops her off at school and eagerly picks her up every single afternoon. People always think that starting over from zero is a terrifying, shameful curse. But sitting here tonight, I am starting to see it as an incredible, rare privilege. I get to design our new life exactly the way we want it to be. There will be no more walking on eggshells in our own home. There will be no more pretending to be someone I am not, just to keep a fake, toxic peace. Dear Lord, please grant me the endless patience to truly listen to her needs and the fierce courage to always protect her from harm. If you want to walk alongside us on this challenging journey of healing and building a new life, please hit that subscribe button. Having your presence here is a true, undeniable blessing to my daughter and me. I slowly stand up from the hard floor, my tired knees popping loudly in the quiet room. I walk softly over to the thin mattress in the corner. The repaired music box is still playing its gentle, soothing lullaby in my hand. I set it down extremely carefully on a cardboard box right next to her pillow. She stirs slightly at the comforting sound of the familiar music. A tiny, sleepy smile spreads across her innocent face, and she snuggles deeper into her faded yellow blanket. She is entirely safe here. We are entirely safe here. The profound silence in this small apartment does not feel suffocating or scary anymore. It actually feels incredibly clean. It feels exactly like a blank canvas, just waiting for us to paint our own bright future. I gently pull the soft edge of the blanket up over her small shoulder. I absolutely know that tomorrow is going to be incredibly hard. There will undoubtedly be moments when I feel completely lost, and there will be tough days when the money is incredibly tight. But standing here right now, watching her breathe so peacefully, I know with absolute, unwavering certainty that leaving that cold violence behind was the best decision I ever made. A much brighter, warmer tomorrow is waiting for us just outside that window. Please send a short, kind blessing to my daughter and me in the comments below. Your kind, spam-free words are an invaluable source of motivation that truly helps save and rebuild shattered souls like ours. We are going to be just fine.